Preface. I wrote this book through tears with a deep contentment, knowing that I am exactly where I need to be, and that God does not waste pain. Some deep truths can only come through pain. And now I can see the world in a new way through the lens of God's mercy. There were several elements that led my husband Jerry and I to foster, but I don't remember what specifically inspired us to finally enroll in foster care classes. When our oldest daughter was 2 years old and our son was 5 months old, we got our state license and began fostering. I wish that I had found books about foster parenting and knew foster families when we started years ago. The social media era was new at the time, and no one had smartphones yet. I had a million questions. When we began the journey, we lived in a 900 square foot, 3-bedroom home. But after a year, we moved to a 2,000 square foot, 5-bedroom home. In the first 2 years, we fostered over 20 children. Some of them came to us by way of giving other foster parents a break for a weekend or a week. Others were placements where we said yes to children moving in indefinitely, which included everything from a toddler we had for 3 hours to an 11-year-old we adopted and made a permanent part of our family. Many years have passed since that time, and our adopted daughter is now 24 and living on her own. Our other children are now 17, 16, and 12. We took an 8-year break from fostering when we adopted our daughter, and I went back to teaching after being a stay-at-home mom for 8 years after our first baby was born. Life was busy. Jerry had always been helpful and a wonderful dad to all of our children. When we returned to fostering, I was juggling teaching full-time and a larger family. Jerry's help was as good as ever, but I still found myself desperately grasping for a lifeline of inspiration and hope. All I could think was, maybe I'm not strong enough to foster anymore. Maybe I need antidepressants. I felt so alone and overwhelmed. I found myself numbly driving to the library after school one day in search of a few minutes to myself. I dropped to a metal stool between the aisles in the nonfiction section as I held a tiny handful of books on foster care. When I flipped to the chapter about foster kids leaving, I realized that I was in the grief cycle and that it's normal to feel moody, melancholy, and numb. As my foster children's departure neared, I devoured others' stories and thought, they're fighting this good fight too. Look at these people. Their stories aren't organized or pretty, but they're making a difference. We're doing okay in our mess. I needed to hear other people's stories. Reading how others worked through their struggles inspired me. It was such a relief to realize that what I felt was normal. Just knowing that fact made me feel a little better. It's not only okay, but healthy to be sad for a while. Some parts of fostering are just plain hard, but I can do hard. As my mom always says, you can do anything for a little while. I needed more stories about this hard journey. I felt like the books I read skimmed over the alarming parts of foster care or minimized them, as if the authors were afraid to scare off potential foster families. But as with childbirth, I'd rather know about the hard parts so that I'm ready when they come. I want to be able to brace myself for the painful times, knowing they're just a part of the process. If other people can go through this expression of love, I can too. Everyone knows birth is painful, but no one questions the joy. No one questions whether it's worth it or not. My hope is that your foster journey awakens in you the reality of how much God loves.